let's welcome Mayor Rick Baker.
Hey, JJ.
Thank you, sir.
Just put him down. Good morning. So I guess I should talk about the Marshall Tucker Band first. Some of you may be too young to remember the Marshall Tucker Band, but they're a Southern rock band, and they're always one of my favorites. And so they were coming to town, and what I figured there are two ways to play with the Marshall Tucker Band. You can be good, or you can be mayor. And I was mayor, so I wanted to play the Marshall Tucker Band. So I said, could somebody tell them that the mayor would like to play with them? And so they said yes, surprisingly, actually. And they were going to have me play one song with them. And the song, I didn't find out till the day of the concert, was "Can't You See?" And I'm an okay guitar player, so I decided I better go practice this thing. And I went to an old record store, if you could still find one, and I found a 1970 London concert of the Marshall Tucker Band, because I want to make sure, if those of you in music, you got to kind of play the same chords they're playing. That's pretty important. And you can play it in different keys, and I want to figure out what key they're playing and all that sort of stuff. So I found it, and I went home, figured it out, practiced. Thank God it was D, C, G, the whole song, 3 chords. It was 3 chords that the Grateful Dead used to say, 3 chords of the truth. And so we got there. I met Doug Gray, the lead singer, and I said, well, Doug, I can't tell you how thrilled I am. I've never played with a big band before. Played in the garage as a kid, you know. And he said, well, I never played with the mayor before, so we're going to have fun today. And I went up there, and they said, we're going to play Can't You See? Sit on the stage, we'll call you up. And this was an outdoor concert in Vinoy Park in St. Pete. 25,000 people. And so every kind of kid's dream when he's playing in the garage to get to do that someday. And so I'm there waiting to play. And it's going to be 9 o'clock, 9:15, 9. Well, we have noise ordinances in the city. And I'm mayor of the city, so I should comply with those. And so at 9:40, 10 o'clock, you had to shut down the stage. They called me up at 5 to 10 to play Can't You See? And I went up there, I thought, you know what? Let the Times write it tomorrow. I'm going to have a good night tonight. I am not going to play with the Marshall Tucker Band. So we played till probably about 10:30, 10:45. And of course, I read about it in the next paper, but it was well worth it. It was a great time. I'm so thrilled to be with you here today. I got to have a great tour of part of your county. It's a big county, so we didn't see we got 3 hours worth of your county yesterday, but we didn't get to see everything. But JJ sat down with maps and showed me everything going on in every part of the county, and the development and the effort, and it's an exciting place to be with the new interstate connector coming in, and you know, it's just good to be in Florida. I do development now all over Florida. I'm building apartments in cities around Florida, downtowns, only in downtowns, and so I get to see what's going on. You know, we're blessed where we live, because we just kind of take this growth for granted, because people are coming here every day, and it's like you open the door and just people keep coming in. But there are a lot of places that you have to drag them in the door to make them come. And we are blessed to have that kind of growth if we can steer it right. But what I'm really thrilled about is to talk with folks that are still city builders, that love their place, or community builders, I should say. They love their place. They love what they do. And I should say, you know, as I talk, I'm going to get flowing into talking about cities, right? Because that's what I did, what I do. St. Petersburg, just so you know, is a city. At the time I was mayor, it's 4th largest city. It's a little bit bigger than Orlando. 260,000 people in the city. And so, but in the city, we have really all the issues that you have in the counties, because we have school issues, we have, you know, inner city issues, we have neighborhood development issues, we have zoning issues and development code issues and all those sorts of things. So a lot of what we did at the city, I think, really applies directly to what you're doing throughout the community. But I'm thankful that people care enough about the community. And somebody once asked, do you love the city? Do you love your city? And I said, you know, I don't know that you can love a city. I don't know. What I love is the idea of building a community for the people that are going to come after us and make it a nice place to live, and that so that their quality of life will be a good thing. And that you all would not be spending part of this Friday morning here sitting and listening to me for however long I'm going to talk if you didn't believe the same thing. So thank you. Thank you for being there. Congratulations. You live in a great corner of the world, and I'm looking forward. I was elected mayor on a Tuesday. I served for 9 years, by the way. We had term limits, but it was kind of an odd term I got. But I was elected on a Tuesday. At that time, I was president of a law firm, and I had a very big practice. And then on Wednesday, I went and talked to the city attorney. I think we have some city attorney, but I went to talk to the city attorney, and the city attorney said, well, Mayor, I said, I'm just going to go inactive at my firm. He said, Mayor, you got to sell all your stock. You can't even own stock in your firm because of the conflicts. So between Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I had to do that and turn over all my clients to somebody. And on Sunday, I took office. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And 5 days to transition. St. Petersburg is a strong mayor form of government, which means that the mayor runs the city. It's like a combination of the mayor and the city manager positions. And we had 3,000 employees and about a $500, $600 million budget, 34 departments, parks, recreation, water, sewer, police, fire, lots of stuff to do. And I'm approaching this day and I'm thinking, I have no idea how to run a city, Now, I never really mentioned that during the campaign. But if you think about it, who knows how to run a city till you run a city? Now, if you have a master's in public administration, and that you're going to be way ahead of where I was. But to me, I was out of the business world. I had an MBA in finance, and I had run businesses and started this, so I got in there, and I started coming. I would come in at really 5 in the morning, because I was terrified something bad, big was going to happen. I would not know how to respond. That's honest to goodness. That's where I was. And so I started, and in the course of time, I came to learn that there are 3 parts of the mayor's job. And the first part of the job is you're running the business of the city. As I just said, it's a big operation, a lot of folks, a lot of departments. And how do you get your arms around that? How do you do that? The second part of the job is to deal with the crises, because crises come, and they come fast, and they come often, and they come really daily. A big city, they come daily. And how do you do it? And you're doing it in the window of this media thing that you're learning about as you're going along. And then the third part of your job is to advance the vision for your community. What was your vision for your community? Where did you want it to go? And the risk, and what happens often, is you get so bogged down with the business aspects of stuff, employee lawsuits and this and that, union contracts, and all that, or the crises as they come, that you get kicked off path, and you don't continue with your vision. And you have to have such a discipline to be able to do that. And the way I chose to do it is I chose to develop a strategic planning model for the city, just like you would do in the business world or anywhere else. And to be able to launch that strategic plan for the city. And I'm going to get, and that became what we now call Seamless City, but that's the third part of it. So the business of the city, the business, as I just said, lots of departments, lots of money. How do you get your arms around that? Because on Tuesday, when I was president of the law firm, on Tuesday I would get a Tuesday report. And it would tell me what my accounts receivables were, what our revenues were, what our costs were, what our cash flow was, give me a summary of all the cases that the law firm had going on at the time. So I had pretty good feel for it. But how do you do that in the public sector? How do you measure how you're doing in the public sector? That's an interesting question. And I think it's harder. So what I decided to do was I want to do performance measures. And I started by asking people, well, what is the number one complaint to the city? And people complain to cities from all sorts of ways. Electronic has given us great opportunities to complain to the city. And so you used to be morally letters or phone calls. We have an action line, so you call on the action line. Now we have internet, and you can come from about 20 different directions in the internet. So compile all that. What's the biggest complaint? And okay, I want you all to be thinking, what do you think would be the biggest complaint in a large city? And somebody said code. Other people would say crime, trash. Everybody, nobody in the room, I promise you, was thinking about what the problem was. It was sidewalk repair. And I said, sidewalk repair? I said, okay, well, how long does it take us to fix a sidewalk? Nobody knew. And I thought, well, that's telling. So I said, why don't we go find out how long it takes to fix a sidewalk? So they went back, and it took 30 months to fix a sidewalk, 2.5 years to fix a sidewalk. So, and so what the city was kind enough to do is once you said, there's a sidewalk in front of my house that's broken, could you fix it? They say, sure, we'll be back in 2.5 years. And they would put a Bob's barricade over where it was, blinking in front of your house for the next 2.5 years. And that was customer service is what we call it. And so I said, well, that's a problem, but that's a problem you can fix, right? So we did. I put together literally a strike team, a sidewalk strike team. We got it down to a couple weeks. But it made me think. It made me think, well, what are the things I don't know? What are the things going on that are ticking people off that I don't know about? And so what I decided to do was to figure out how to put together performance measures. I studied performance measures all over the country of cities. I didn't like any of them because they would be like 1,000 performance measures and nobody could read them and you couldn't really get a good feel. I wanted to feel to govern. What did I need to know to govern? And so what I wound up doing is I bring in the departments one at a time. I talk with the fire chief, bring the fire chief in. So fire chief, how's and all the senior staff under the fire chief, senior officers, and I say, how is the fire department? Is the fire department serving the people in St. Petersburg today better than a year ago? And I would ask the parks department, and I would ask the water department, and the sewer department, and the roads department. And guess what? Everybody said yes. Yes, of course we are. We're serving much better than every year we're getting better. Okay, well, okay. How do I know that? When somebody asks me from the outside, what can I tell them? How can I demonstrate, yes, it's better, and this is why? And that becomes an interesting series of questions. And that developed into about really almost a year. Unfortunately, it took long, but there are a lot of departments. It's a big thing. And then we try to put it all in graph-based form. So I've developed 160 performance measures. We called it the city scorecard. It was all graph-based and all with comparison to historical. So you could look at what was our response time for a priority 1 police call 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 2 years ago, 1 year. And so we had to go mine all that data. And what is it today? So I could tell you, sitting here even this long from then, it was 7.1 minutes when I took office. When I left, it was 5.8. And now that doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're the one waiting for the police officer to show up when somebody's banging on your door, that matters to you, right? The national standard, by the way, for police at the time was 7 minutes. Our fire and our EMS were quicker. They're about 4.5 minutes. But when you think about it, those are pretty relevant things. And how are you doing it? And how are you keeping up with it? And then you talk about arsons and all that sort of thing. But then you say, well, how long has it taken us to fix a pothole? How long has it taken us to fix a sidewalk? How are we doing responding to the job of running the city and what's important? And that goes right into our finance, by the way. And it goes in because what not only was our investment return, but what is our fund balances, and our fund balance is strong, and what percentage of our overall budget do we have in a fund balance, all those kind of things. And all those we boiled down into 160 performance measures. And then I said, I want them all online. Put them all online. And so I never got a report. By the way, I did get reports when I first took office. I got 2 reports. One was the police statistics, and the other was the rainfall in the area. I have no idea how I got that. But those were the only statistics. Hard to govern with those 2 statistics. So I said, well, we're going to put them all online, And I'm going to find out about it the same time everybody else. So if I ever want my report, I just go online like everybody else. So if you could be in Taiwan and get the report as quick as I do. And because I wanted that kind of transparency, because I cannot, one person, get my arms around 34 departments and 3,000 people in an organization like that. I need there to be something in place to self-move it. So what happens is if you have that and you have 160 performance measures, and 159 are showing you doing great, and one is showing you doing bad, which do you think the St. Pete Times is going to have the article on tomorrow? I don't think they're going to write, city's doing great, 159 of these things are all good. No, they ignore that, and they focus and they pounce on the one. And actually, that's a good thing, because what happens is once we had a spike in graffiti, and before the staff knew, oh my goodness, I'm about to put this on a performance measure, it's going to go online, I'm going to get a call from the reporter. I got to be able to respond. And so they by the way, I don't even yet know we have a spike in graffiti. So before I even find out about it, they put a plan. They put a team together with the police department to go after the gang, because it's mostly gangs, to identify the gangs and which gangs they were, to go after it. In the maintenance department, so that we would actually go paint over them once we found out about them. We take pictures, paint over them, and one other, sanitation department. So we had 3 departments that planned, so that by the time the reporter called them, they already said, yep, we're aware of it, this is what we're doing to respond to it, and we think we're going to bring it back down, which we did do. And so by the time I get the reporter's call, I've already got a call from somebody in the department saying, okay, Mayor, this is what's going on, this is the response, this is what we're doing, it's all, and so you got it. And I didn't have to do anything. And that's how we chose to govern it. One other one I'll do, and I'll get off this particular subject, is the building department. When I took office, the building department, the most common term used for it was dysfunctional. And because people would go for a building permit, and it would take them forever to get a building permit. And for anybody that's been in the business, in the construction or development world, if you get delayed, it could take you 6 months or a year to get a permit on something. If that you are losing money, you are bleeding money when you're doing that, because you've borrowed money to build this development, and you're paying interest on this money, and that just doesn't. We should always make sure people comply with the law, especially safety codes. But we should try to help them comply with the law, and we should be responsive. So I put in process some goals of response time: 8 days for residential, 12 days for commercial, 5 days for resubmittals, and that we had to respond within those periods. So then some of the staff, vast majority of staff, very good people, but not all, some of the staff would say, they'd get to the 11th day and they would reject it without a reason. And then, so they wanted to get the clock started again for the next 12 days, or for the 5 days for submittal and that sort of thing. So then anyways, I kept playing this game of cat and mouse with that till we finally got that. And finally what I did, and I think the most effective thing we did, was at the beginning of my term, I said, we're gonna have 7 a.m. meetings with anybody in the building community that's mad or wants to come talk to us. And we did it in a room, and we had the head of development sitting next to me, and the head of the building department sitting next to him, and then we had the fire marshal, because in a redevelopment scenario, most of your issues wind up with the fire marshal. So had them there, and then somebody there, my assistant, to take notes, to keep track of everything, and then we invited people, and it was standing room only, angry as hornets, and screaming at me. And I'm thinking, I'm the new guy, right? I'm trying to help, so please don't scream at me. So they would tell me the issues, and so what I learned as mayor, when somebody's got a complaint about your building department, and I'm not going to talk about building departments all day, but when somebody has a complaint about the building department, it's half the time it's because there's a building official that's really being a little bit not good, and half the time it's because the contractor has gotten behind on his job and he needs somebody to blame. So he blames the building department. And the trouble is, I don't know which it is. I don't know which it is. So the only way I can do that is like, bring them all in and let's talk. And so I'd say, okay, Mr. Building Department, and what's going on? And we would get into that kind of discussion. And the first few meetings I had like that were packed to the gills. And then I had a meeting and nobody showed up. I said, well, did we notify people? Yeah, Mayor, we notified people. Well, why is nobody showing up? I came to learn that these three folks started holding meetings a month before my meeting with anybody mad, and started solving the problems before it got to my meeting so that the people didn't have to come in and go complaints. That is, again, when you're one person and you got 3,000 employees, you got to come up with ways to be able to govern this ship and that are almost self-governing, because otherwise it can't be done. So, and by the time, 2 years into office, all the Contractors Association, Builders Association came and said we were the best permitting department on the west coast of Florida, because we do. And we'd also, by the way, completely rewritten our development code during that period of time to make it work better, and I could talk about that if you all want to. But anyways, you got to run the business city. You got to deal with the crises. There are three different types of crises. There's natural crises. You have a hurricane. We had 4 hurricanes come into St. Pete in 2004. Our EOC was deployed almost the whole summer, and so you have those natural crises you got to deal with and figure out your plan for. You have the man-made crisis. You have a shooting. We had a 8-year-old drive-by shooting in a house. It was a horrific thing one time when I was in office, and we had a tanker truck explode on our interstate, and we have 2 main feeders coming into the city. One of them, a tanker truck exploded at night, and they sadly the driver was killed, and the tanker, it was a 3-story high feeder, and unfortunately it was under the city equipment yard. So all of our moving transportation equipment was under this interstate, and the fuel was on fire on the 3rd floor. It was flowing over onto our trucks, and all of our trucks were on fire. And then there's a drain that goes through the interstate support that goes directly into our stormwater system. And it was draining on fire into our stormwater system, which was then feeding down the stormwater system to a canal that runs by Tropicana Field where the Rays play, okay? So that's a bad night, just so you know. It's a bad night. It's a bad night to be mayor. So we get there, and I'm walking along with the fire chief. We got there at the same time, and there are explosions under our feet as we're going along. So you have these kind of crises that you have to deal with. And I'm gonna quiz you on one time, and I won't go through all, but one time there was an 8-foot water main coming into our city from the north. It was coming from Tampa Bay Water, and in the 90s we had turned over really all of our water supply to Tampa Bay Water that now serves the whole Bay Area. So 8-foot water main, for some reason they didn't have any redundancy in their water system coming in. So the water main broke. And at 4 o'clock, I'm on a Thursday afternoon, I'll never forget it, the head of the water department comes into my office and says, Mayor, we got a problem. And of course that's why she's there, because there's a problem. So I said, well, what is it? She said, the water main broke. Well, we have 2 water mains coming either side of the city, but they feed out. I said, well, do we have the other one? No, this is the big one. I said, okay, what does that mean? I said, well, that's the only place we get water. I said, okay, that's not good. So what happens? Tell me what's going on. She said, well, we have about reserves of water in these bigger tankers and stuff. We have about 5 days worth of water. I said, okay, well, how long is it going to take to fix? She said, it's going to take about 5 days to fix. I said, well, I guess we better get started, huh? And she said, yeah, but she said, Mayor, we got another problem. I said, okay, what's the other problem? I said, well, Pinellas County is served from that same 8-foot main. I said, okay. How about them? What about their reserves? They've got no reserves. Oh, okay. And they've asked us for our reserves. I said, okay, well, what happens if I give them our reserves? Well, if we both use our reserves, then we're out of water at noon tomorrow. I said, okay, that's not good. That's not good. So out of water at noon tomorrow. I was still my first term. I was kind of hoping to get reelected at the time. And I said, okay, what is there anything? There any other water supply? Because I knew we have a plant. We used to have wells. Yeah, we have some old wells under our Cosby plant that we haven't tapped in years. We don't know if we can get water out of them. And of course, we'd have to get a DEP permit to get it done. Anybody ever tried to get a DEP permit? And it doesn't take, it takes a while. And I said, okay, well, how long is it going to take us to know? Well, we're not going to know for about 10 hours whether we can, 8 to 10 hours. I said, okay. I said, well, how long do I have to decide? She said, 10 minutes. Because Pinellas County will be out of water in 10 minutes. And when it's out of water, it's not just like at your house. It's hospitals. It's the whole water system backs up. You get bacteria in the system. It's really bad, right? And guess who's the bad guy if I don't give them the water? So I'm thinking, okay, if I give them the water, if I don't give them the water, I can take care of my city. That's my job, by the way, my city, right? But if I don't give them the water, I'm okay. And if I do give them the water, I could give them the water. It could not get fixed, and we'll all be out of water. And I just put my city out of water for no reason because they're out of water anyways, right? So that's a hard decision. You know, there's not a, and people keep looking for a third option. There's no third option. You got to decide. You got really about 5 minutes. So that's an interesting. I want you all to picture yourself as mayor today, okay, or county administrator, or somebody has to make a decision like this. You have your responsibility to your folks. You have this other thing going on. What do you do? What do you do? And I'll let you all think about that. And maybe for my question, somebody could ask me what I did. So I'm going to go on to, and then the third thing that's the job of the mayor is advance your vision. And that's where the strategic plan comes in. I believe that everybody should have a strategic plan. I believe that in personal life you should have it. I think in business you should have it. I think you should. If you're not planning, you're just kind of randomly going along, you know? So you should at least know what you want to do, or how are you going to know what to do it? It's like somebody asked me yesterday, what do you think about, well, what should Clay County do? And I said, well, what do they want to be? To me, that's the question, is you first have to ask yourself, what do you want to be? You can't determine what you should do until you know what you want to be. If you want to be predominantly a suburban community where people commute to other places, there's nothing wrong with that, and there are a lot of those in the country. That you're going to do one thing. If you want to develop into a place that has activity centers and urban centers and stuff like that, that's another thing. And you're going to have to do different things to do those two things. So before you know what you want to do, you have to know what you want to be. And that, as a community, that's got to be decided, and however it is. So for St. Petersburg, the vision I set out was very simple. I said, I want to build the best city in America by working every day to improve the quality of life of the people that live there. I actually believe that should be every city's goal. But I want to be the best, and I'm going to do it by improving the quality of life. So everything I do, every decision we make, needs to say, is this going to improve the quality? Not politics, not this, not that, not this. Quality of life. We're going to improve the quality of life for the kids. And I always say, especially the children, because how are we going to make it a great place to grow up? And so you get that vision. And at the time, this was 2001. Nobody really thought of St. Petersburg as the best of anything back then. If you had been to St. Pete back then, our downtown, not much going on. There were a lot of names they called it. It wasn't good. And so we were people would say to me, Mayor, it's a joke. St. Petersburg best? Now I will tell you, now people think in the city think we are the best. They're arrogant about it. They wear these T-shirts: Paris, London, Rome, St. Petersburg. That's what they do. And it's St. Petersburg, Florida, by the way. And I always say I like those T-shirts, except St. Petersburg should be first. That's what I always say. But my response to these people that say, what do you mean, first, really? I said, what do you want me to do? set a goal to be the fourth best city in Florida? Who's going to want to be part of my job? Okay, come on with me. We're going to be the fourth best city in Florida. No. People they strive for the best. Whatever you seek to do, you have to strive to become the best. There's no reason to do anything else. First of all, nobody's going to join you. But I believe that if you have great causes and you have good vision and you've set it out and clearly articulated it and given people that vision, people flow to it. And resources flow to it. Money flows to it. People often will kill great ideas before they even get on paper because they say, well, we can never get the money for that. I just never accept that. I never accept that. If you have a great idea and a great vision and you lay it out and you get renderings and you make it clear and it's the right thing, money and people flow to it. It happened. We never failed. We did a lot of big things. St. Pete went from, for those of you familiar, an incredible transition during that period of time. And we never failed to do anything for lack of money. Never did. So you set an objective to be the best. You should always. I think everybody should always do that. What do we want to be? But we want to be great at. First of all, quality of life. But what do we want to be as a community? And let's go out and grab it. And I think anybody can do it. So you do that, you got that vision, then you got 5 parts of it. And I happen to believe they're the 5 major things you have to do for any community, whether it's a city, county, or whatever, the 5 major. Number 1 is public safety. The number 1 job of the President of the United States is to keep the country safe. The number 1 job of the mayor of a city or a county administrator is to keep the community, or a sheriff, is to keep the community safe, or a fire chief, to keep the community safe. That's the number 1 job. If you don't do that, nothing else works. Go to Newark. If you don't do that, you have a hard time doing it. Go to Chicago nowadays. It's sad, but I'm from Chicago. It's sad. If you don't have your number 1 job of keeping it safe. So that should be, and public safety is of course crime and fire, but it's also hurricanes and it's now Homeland Security. And I'm sure you all are involved in it. We had a Homeland Security team and there's some scary stuff you got to deal with. So public safety, number 1 job. Second is neighborhoods. So it's going to be it's public safety, neighborhoods, economic development, schools, and city services and taxes. Those are the 5, in my mind. Second, neighborhoods. And I'm not, other than public safety, they're not in a particular order. In the era of neighborhoods, I think neighborhoods, we should always be thinking of how we make our neighborhoods better. You have a lot of traditional neighborhoods here. You have some new ones coming in. How do we make the neighborhoods better? We formed 110 neighborhood associations in the city, and they had volunteer neighborhood leaders from it, and they were coming up with plans for the neighborhoods. And the neighborhood, in the city or county, should come up with their own plans, but how do you move that neighborhood? But it's amazing how much you can change a neighborhood by just putting a plan together and with very little funding and just kind of moving the dial. And sometimes it's, in some neighborhoods it can be drug sales. In some neighborhoods it can be speeding. In some neighborhoods it just can be, we want some street improvements and stuff, or parks or whatever. It varies from neighborhood to neighborhood, which is why the neighborhoods themselves should be helping to redevelop it. And then beyond that, there are certain things I think you should do to try to improve the quality of life that are general things. So dog parks. I'm a dog park guy. I realized one of my council members came to me right after, as I was getting elected, and said, we ought to do dog parks. And I'd never heard of dog parks back then. And what we were doing is we have parks in the city that if we let the dog loose, that they got a $25 fine. So that's how friendly we were for dogs. And there was no place to let the dog loose unless you had a backyard. And so so what we created a dog park. The lawyers, I'm a lawyer, the lawyers all said you can't do that because dogs bite people, they bite dogs, it's liability, da, da, da. I said, okay, we did it. So we built the dog park, and we did our first dog park, and it was on Crescent Lake. And it was, we took a piece of a park. The neighborhood had to give us a piece of their park or let us use it. And I put a fence around it and a bench inside it and a water hydrant. because that's cute, right? And each neighborhood gets to paint their water hydrant, right? So this thing cost me $9,000 to put in. Well, the day before, I had just broken ground on a $2.5 million library. I built a lot of libraries. And that was a nice thing, and we probably had a dozen people from the neighborhood to come to see the groundbreaking for the $2.5 million library. So for my $9,000 dog park, we had 200 people show up. And about 1,000 dog legs were there. And it was just jammed. Within weeks, the grass was worn down. And the people were parking in the neighborhood. And the neighborhood leaders are saying, please get these people out of my neighborhood. Go build dog parks everywhere. And I'm thinking, okay, they're very cheap. Everybody loves them. I want to get reelected. I'm going to build dog parks all over the city. So everywhere you go in St. Pete, you can find dog parks. Now, some of the, and dog parks is kind of I talk too much about it, but I'm going to. Is something about a dog park is you'll find that if you go to a regular park and there's 2 or 3 people talking, and I walk up to them, I say, hi, I'm Rick, how are you doing? They're going to think, what's he up to? What does he want? And they're going to maybe take a step back, because I'm kind of big, So maybe take a step back, and they're going to, what's going on? If you go to a dog park and you walk up to the same group and say, which is your dog? You have instant friends. It's amazing. They all talk about their dogs, and they all love everybody. They actually create whole groups that come at different times of the day during the dog parks. It'll be, we're the 10 o'clock group for the dog park. We're the 8 o'clock group. And they develop a mayor of the dog park, and I used to go with my dog when I was mayor, and everybody would come and complain to me about everything. Oh, look at that. See that? The grass got worn out there. Can you fix that, Mayor? So finally I said, okay, I'm going to form a citizens advisory committee for the dog park. So I put the sign on every park, Citizens Advisory Committee number, you can join. So anytime anybody came up to me, because otherwise I'd have to stop going to the dog park. So I'd go to the dog park, Mayor, can you fix this? Guess what? There's a number over there. You can be part of the Citizens Advisory Committee. Go join and you can fix it yourself. That's great. Good. So anyways, dog parks, little thing, right? But it's a community building thing. And what communities want now is gathering places. They want to be part of something. They want to feel that the city, county, government cares about them, that is thinking about them. And it doesn't take a lot. You can just do these little things. Playgrounds. My kids were 4 and 5 when I became mayor. And I used to walk them to the playground. And I thought, boy, this is nice, because it was only about 5 blocks away. I said, everybody should be able to do that. So I set up a plan called Playing Close to Home to build a playground within a 1.5 mile walk of every child in the city, so that wherever you lived, you could walk to a public playground with you. And guess what? It's the same thing. If you don't have to get out of your car to go someplace, you feel different about it. Isn't that interesting how that works? If I can just get out of my house and walk 3 blocks to the playground, I tell everybody, we just have a playground down the street. I can go sit. And you meet your neighbors, and you talk to your neighbors, and you build community, and you develop gathering places. They're not that expensive. They're not that expensive compared to some big things government does. They're not that expensive. And so I put a map of the city, and I put a dot where all the playgrounds were. I put a 1/2 mile radius circle. And then we just started filling it in like Pac-Man. Every time we could get an opportunity. Sometimes I'd put it at a school. I had to go all the way to Tallahassee because the school's liability, no. But I wound up doing joint use with the schools. I would actually go to a school, elementary school. I'd go to the superintendent really, but at the elementary school. And I'd say, I'm gonna build a brand new, beautiful playground. Most of them didn't have good playgrounds. Build a brand new, beautiful playground for free, give it to you. Just let the city kids outside of the school use it after school and on the weekends. And after we got all the legal hurdles, but we did it. We probably had a 6 around the city. We did the same thing with churches and anywhere, because anywhere we could partner with somebody to build a school, as long as they let the public use it, we did that. So it's called Playing Close to Home. Again, not a big thing, but it's a community builder. It's something that makes people feel better about where they live and what they're doing and what they like. So we did that. We started the first designated green city program in the state of Florida. So the Green Building Coalition put together a 200 item engineered thing. I cleaned up eutrophicated lake, the biggest in the state. We built bike paths. I planted 20,000 trees, by the way, 20,000 trees and 6,000 flowering trees. And we built bike paths all over the city because I like bike paths. And it's a quality of life thing. It's a quality of life thing. When people start seeing this kind of stuff going, you know, you can build yourself a big basketball or football arena or baseball arena or something like that, and they think, God, are we just wasting that money again? But if you build them a library, or if you build them a playground, or you build them a dog park, and somebody cares. Somebody is listening to me, and so we did that all over the city. We were very focused on all the neighborhoods. So neighborhoods is a big deal. Schools. When I ran for office, I campaigned on schools. I campaigned that's going to be one of my planks. And I ran against 10 people. And they said, well, schools, they're not part of the mayor's job. This guy doesn't even know what the mayor's job is. And my response was, you know, if my schools aren't good, then nobody's going to move in my neighborhoods. And especially in an inner city, which is where your toughest schools tend to be. And if the schools aren't good, then businesses aren't going to want to put their businesses there because they get their employees out of the schools and their employees' kids are going to go to the schools. And so they don't want to be there either. So if you don't have good schools, you're not going to get very far. And so anybody that says that's not part of the mayor's job, they shouldn't be elected. And of course they elected me, so I was right. So we got the schools, and then I get in office, I go, okay, what am I going to do now? And we started out with something called the Doorways program. And the Doorways program tells a child in a free and reduced lunch program, which again, the statistics for high school graduation in the free and reduced lunch program kids are not great. And they certainly weren't great 12 years ago when we started. And so we would tell them, a sixth grader, we'd say, if your attendance is good, if your conduct is good, if you are crime-free and drug-free, and you have at least a C average between 6th and 12th grade, we will give you a 4-year college scholarship. Okay, that's a great incentive for a kid to stay good. And so how did I fund it? I funded it privately. Everything I did in the schools is privately funded. So a prepaid tuition scholarship at the time cost $16,000 if you bought it for a 6th grader. And so we would tell fortunately the state has a program that is allowed that if a nonprofit will buy a prepaid tuition scholarship, I think it's called SAVE, for a free and reduced kid, then they will pay for half of it. So the $16,000 became $8,000. And then we have an education foundation in Pinellas County, which is the business leaders that help support education. If you don't have one in this county, you really should. They're a great thing for the business leaders to get involved in supporting the public schools in the community. And I went to them and I said, okay, I got to get $8,000 to get this scholarship. If you'll give me $4,000, I'll raise $4,000. And they said, okay, because that was their job. That was their mission. And then I went to a fellow named John Galbraith, who's CEO of Templeton, he's a former client of mine. And I said, John, I need to get $4,000. If you'll give me $2,000, I'll raise $2,000. And he said, oh, okay, sure. So you know, you get them to take little bites at a time. And then I went to the Kiwanis Club, and I said, if you'll hold an annual dinner to raise money, and for every $2,000 you raise, I'll send a kid to college for 4 years. And so they do that. And so after 4 years, we were able to give 1,000 4-year college scholarships to kids in free and reduced lunch programs. 93% of them graduated from high school. Amazing thing. And so to me, you try to capture middle school, because I always say 6th grade or so is about when kids are deciding whether they're going to be good kids or bad kids. That's kind of what they're deciding then. And if you can get them then, give them the scholarships, then you can turn that. You can get them turned in the right direction. And it also has repercussions on the entire system when other people see that happening. And they see it start to. So that was one thing we did. Another thing we did is I was talking to a principal once, and she said, you know, Mayor, if I get an F on you know how the state grades our schools based on standardized scores of the kids. I know that's controversial, but I happen to believe that there needs to be measurement of some kind, whether that's the test or another test, I don't know. But so we grade the schools, A, B, C, D, F. And she said to me, if I get an F, I get in the front page of the St. Pete Times. And if I get an A, I don't even get a call from the superintendent. You know, this is not a good deal. And so we started something called the Top Apple Program. And the Top Apple Program, and by the way, everything I did in the schools, I would have a quarterly meeting with the superintendent of schools. I would sit down with her at breakfast, and I'd say, listen, you're in charge of the schools, I'm not in charge of the schools. I don't want to get in your face, I don't want to get in your way, I don't want to do anything, I don't want to get in your job. I want to do things to help you. And so I'm going to present you with things that I think could help you, and if you don't want me to do it, I won't do it. And I won't even tell anybody you told me not to do it. I won't do it. And so that's a very disarming thing. Because otherwise there can be people can feel threatened that you're trying to do their job, which you don't want to do. Like superintendent of schools is a hard job. I don't want to try to do it. But I want to try to help. So then the principal said, well, so I started something called the Top Apple Program. The Top Apple Program says, if you are a school and you either get an if you increase a letter grade in your school that year, so you go to even if it's from an F to a D, or you are an A and you stay an A, you become a Mayor's Top Apple School. So what do we do with that? Well, the Mayor's Top Apple Schools, we bring all the principals and assistant principals in from the schools. And we have a televised meeting at City Hall. We have the school board there, legislative delegation there, city council there, mayor's there. And we say, we bring each principal and their corporate partner, which I'll talk about in a second, and their corporate partner up there, and we give them a marble apple, put their name on it, and we give them a banner. It's like an NCAA banner. You ever see those with the big banners? And it says, 2007 Mayor's Top Apple School, Mount Vernon Elementary School. And by the way, when I gave them to them, I didn't know I thought they might put them in the office. They hung them in front of the school, every one of them, every one of them. They were so proud. And then we'd give them a gift basket. And the gift basket would have theater tickets and things, discounts and stuff and things like that for the principal, or the assistant principal. And then we'd give them dinner for two at the Columbia restaurant, which of course Columbia donated. You know, everything is I got people to donate. Then we got them a weekend at the Tradewinds Resort on St. Petersburg Beach with their family. And then we gave them a $2,500 cash bonus and $1,000 for the assistant principals. And the state, so Jeb Bush was in office and I was working with him on this. The state was giving, for the same treatment, was giving a bonus pool for teachers to do the same thing. And then also for teachers, we developed a program called the Teacher A+ program. And the Teacher A+ program said, I use state housing money. So for teachers that wanted to live in the city of St. Pete, I would tell them that if you buy a house in the city, I'll use state housing money to give you a $20,000 interest-free loan to use as a deposit on your house, so you can get a house. And if you teach in the city for 10 years, I think it was 10 years, I was corrected by Van the other day, 10 years, then you never have to pay the loan back. And so it's a way of making the teachers feel good about being in the city, because the city's got the tough schools, right? And so we had a corporate partner program where we have 46 schools in the city. I got a corporate partner, Raymond James, or a law firm, or an accounting firm, or Home Shopping Network, or Duke Power, all these companies. I went to every one of them and said, I need you to be a corporate partner for us in the schools. So the CEOs of the company would meet with the principal of the schools, and they'd put a plan together. It's all voluntary. If the principal didn't want to do it, didn't have to do it. But I never had a principal say no. And they put a plan together, and the company would help with strategic planning. They'd help with money if they needed money for something, or they would help with mentors and tutors for the kids. They'd use their employees to go mentor and tutor the kids for the stuff. So for instance, Raymond James took Mount Vernon Elementary School, which was a 78% free and reduced lunch school, and it had been a D school for 3 years in a row. And they became the partner. They did an in-depth analysis of all the test scores of the kids, and they found out where the weaknesses of the kids were. And then they bought computer-assisted programs that they provided to the schools in those topics for the kids that they identified as not doing well in those particular areas. And then they got mentors out of their company to come over and sit down with the kids once or twice a week and go through the program to try to help them through that, right? All in partnership with the principal doing it. They wanted to increase, I love this, they wanted to increase the parents coming to the parent meetings, right? Because they weren't coming. And so they started, Raymond James bought Outback for the parent-teacher meetings every time they met. And of course, they got so that the fire code limited how many parents could come into the meeting, and the participation of the parents just went through the roof. And candidly, at first, they would feed them first, and then have the meeting, and people would leave before the meeting. So they then got where they had the meeting, and then they fed them, and so it worked out well. So but what it was it wasn't me trying to do it. It was finding a senior vice president at Raymond James, which is a big group, to start to help the school, to put it to work with it in partnership, not telling them what to do, in partnership with the schools. That school went from a triple D school to go CBA. It was A the last 6 years I was in office. Same group of kids, same everything, and changed the world for them. So overall, we did a lot, and I can talk all day about the schools, I won't, but we did, the concept here is, everybody's gotta be in it. It can't be the schools. The schools feel, I don't know here, I can't speak about here. I know in my community, the schools felt isolated. They felt like we're just getting beaten up all the time. We're just told what to do here, and we're told what to do here. They change the rules here, they change the rules here, and nobody's coming to help. And I'm not talking about your community because I don't know it, but that's the way my community was. And so they felt so good that somebody cared, the mayor cared. And it used to be that the teachers and principals were fleeing the city. Once you got enough tenure to get out, you got out. You went to the suburbs because it was easier, right? It got to the point where people were trying to get into our schools, and they were trying to get into our schools. And I had one teacher that got mad at me because she had gotten this loan for the house, and then she moved out to another school outside. And she said, but Mayor, she's a good teacher. I said, I don't care. I want her in the city school. She has to pay the loan back. That's the deal. The deal is you don't get the loan unless you're in the city school. And I'm trying to praise that. If I let her take that loan with her, then I've got no more incentive. It's gone. But what we had was I would have businesses come on, and honestly, I'd have businesses, the president of Duke Power, Florida, would come to me. And I'd run into him at a party. He said, Mayor, did you hear what my school's doing? And where we are and what we've done? And that's what you want. You want the whole community talking about it because the schools are they're the most important thing we do. We don't always treat them like that, but they are. That's where our kids are. That's where our future is. And I don't mean to be melodramatic, but it is, and we need to focus on it, but we need to not say it's all the superintendent's job or it's all the school board's job. It isn't. It's all of our jobs, and everybody needs to be part of that and help. So then the last category one of them is running the business city. I talked a lot about that with the permits. We also we reduced tax rates by 20% when I was in office. A lot of people think, oh, he must have spent all this. No, we reduced tax rates. We eliminated 10% of the staffing in the city while we were increasing the number of police officers on the street, and more than half of that reduction was middle-level management, that most of which was not needed. They wound up adding some back. So we worked a lot on running the business. And then the last category is economic development. And in economic development, we worked on citywide economic development. And I already told you about the permitting department. That had a big impact on it, by the way. That when you actually make it easy to do business in the city or the county or whatever it is, that actually makes more people want to do business in the city and county. And so we did that. So you do that, we recruited businesses. And I will tell you, we recruited a lot of businesses, but that wasn't all we did. I was chairman of the Chamber of Commerce at one point. And in the chamber, what you learn is that the new jobs that you get this year in Clay County, I'll bet, I don't know, but I'll bet, let me just say, in St. Pete, the new jobs we get in the city every year, 80% are from existing businesses in the city, 80%. So the question is all of us involved in business development and chamber and economic development, are we spending 80% of our time making sure that things are going well with the existing businesses in our city? Are we doing that? Or are we spending 90% of our time trying to lure the next new business to come in? And I'm not against luring the new business to come in. I did that a lot. But I spent most of my time with the existing businesses in the city. I would go to a business and I would sit down with their senior management. I don't care if it's a small shop with 5 employees or Raymond James, which has 8,000 employees in our city. And I would ask them the same questions. I'd say, what are we doing that's right? What is the city doing that's right? Because I want to know. If I'm doing something right, I'd like to know. And also, because once you get to the other side, that kind of dominates the conversation. So what are we doing that's right? And they would tell me. And then I'd say, okay, what are we doing that's wrong? What should we do better for you to serve you better? And then I'd ask, they were always willing to say that. And by the way, when I heard that, that's all well and good to ask, but if you don't do anything about it, then they're even more mad at you. So once you ask that question, you better be willing to do whatever you need to do to fix it. And so we had people I had somebody assigned just to do that. Keep track of that, fix it, and then I personally would report back to them and tell them what we did on that particular issue. And then I would ask, are you going to expand? Are you thinking about expanding in our city? And if so, what can I do to help? And that was very valuable. I learned a lot, and we wound up stimulating a lot of expansion, more than I could ever recruit new companies in job-wise. And then I would ask the question, are you thinking about leaving? And nobody ever asked that question, but you should ask that question. Because if they're thinking about leaving, you want to know. And most of them are not going to lie to you when you come and ask them that question. And then you ask why, and what can I do to stop that? What can I do to make your life so much better that you'll never want to leave here? And I actually had one company that I sat down with that had about 50 employees, and they right after I took office, and they said, I got to that question, they said, Mayor, I'm sorry to tell you this, you wasted your time. I've already got a contract on a piece of property in Bradenton, and we're moving. And I said, I'm a lawyer, is your inspection period done? They said, no, we got 60 or 90 days left. I said, give me 30 days to prove to you should stay here. Give me 30 days. And they gave me 30 days, and now we have 150 employees at that company in the city, in one of the toughest areas of our city to try to redevelop. So you got to deal with the companies you got. You got the businesses you got. They're already here. They're already part of it. Make sure they know that you value them wherever they are in the county. Make sure they know you value them. And you want to help them. You want to help them expand, help them with whatever their issue. Make them feel you're their partner. Most of the time, and I don't know your community, but most of the time when you go there, it's the first time any mayor or county administrator or anybody's ever visited them before. And they're just by the fact that you've come, they're so thrilled. They got your name out front on the marquee when you come in, and they're just so thrilled that you're even coming. You've solved half the issue, but then you got to dig in and do the rest of it to make it work. So we did that general. We recruited businesses. I recruited a lot of high-tech stuff and that. And then I had special focuses on our downtown and our midtown, which is the poorest, most economically depressed part of the city. And the downtown is what everybody thinks about St. Pete now. If you've been to St. Pete, you think, oh my goodness, look at their downtown. It's the coolest downtown. And it is. It's got to be pretty cool. But look how long I got through the talk before I even talked about downtown, right? Because all that other stuff is so important that you can't just go fix a downtown or something without doing all the rest, because you can't move everything forward and together. And so downtown, we did a lot of stuff, and I could talk for hours and hours. I'll save for questions. I hope you'll ask a lot of questions. I got all day. But downtown, I first decided, I believe in a concept called play into your strength. You know, when you ask yourself, what do I want to be? I think another question you should ask, what are we strong at? What are our strengths?